You're listening to Retro Reels, a show that looks back on films from time gone by and recalls the various events, trends, and perspectives that informed their creation. I'm your host, Hannah Walensky, here to guide you through a trip to the past via the silver screen. The first time I ever watched Thai director Apichatpong Weerasethakul for the program, it was during Ghost Month last year. Although Weerasethakul is an openly gay man, that film, Uncle Boon Mi, Who Can Recall His Past Lives, wasn't focused on gay themes. It was more about the spiritual beliefs Thai people hold, which are influenced by Buddhism, animism, Hinduism, and karma and reincarnation. His 2004 film, Tropical Malady, has a bit of that going on as well, but it's also a gay love story at the same time, or something like that. Weerasethakul made this movie when he was still a relatively new-to-the-scene filmmaker. He had already shown at Cannes before, but this was the film that announced him internationally. His career saw him come up through experimental and avant-garde film culture, training in the United States in Chicago, but ultimately, he decided to go back to Thailand and found his own independent production company rather than chase a career in the West. That decision to go home and do it exactly the way he wants to, rather than perform Thainess for Western audiences, very much shapes his work, and it's part of why his movies aren't exactly what I would call accessible. It's also important to note that back in 2004, there was no legal recognition of same-sex relationships whatsoever in Thailand. Despite Thailand's reputation for acceptance and inclusivity, the country's society remained largely conservative, with LGBT people reporting discrimination in everyday life, and advocates meeting with resistance from historically conservative government and state agencies. Fast forward about 20 years, and in January 2025, Thailand became the first and so far only Southeast Asian country to have legalized same-sex marriage. They also amended the civil code to extend to same-sex couples the same legal rights, responsibilities, and protections as heterosexual couples, covering marriage registration, joint asset management, guardianship, the works. This makes Thailand the 38th country worldwide and the third in Asia, after Taiwan and Nepal, to legalize gay marriage. But Weerasethakul made this movie at a time when gay love and desire in Thailand still didn't have a legal or social language, so he used his own language instead, a language he constructed from mythology, which I think is some pretty important grounding context for a film that is otherwise kind of difficult to interpret. There is just one song that plays intermittently in the first half of this movie. It's a shoegazy type of track by a Thai artist called Fashion Show that, ironically, is called Straight. But I couldn't obtain it for the program, so I decided to go with a couple of songs by Björk, one of my favorite artists who, despite being Icelandic, on the far other end of the world from Thailand, has made music that feels, to me, like an appropriate match for Tropical Malady. Her songs have the same kind of subversive, genre-defying, sensual, and mythological quality as this movie does. Besides, the gays and girls love Björk, so it just feels right.
As much as I definitely enjoy solitudes, I wouldn't mind perhaps spending little time with you. Sometimes yes, sometimes, possibly, maybe, probably love, possibly, maybe, probably love. Uncertainty excites me, baby. Who knows what's going to happen? Laughter, your car crash, or you join a cult. Probably, maybe, possibly.
Much like Uncle Boonmee, who can recall his past lives, the other Weerasethakul movie I watched for the program, Tropical Malady is really hard to describe. Harder, actually. You can tell he was still working out what themes he wanted to explore and how. The most basic thing I can tell you is it's made up of two parts, the first half of which is meant to kind of prime you for the second. The quote in the beginning from Japanese novelist Ton Nakajima lays down some key themes. All of us are by nature wild beasts. Our duty as human beings is to become like trainers who keep their animals in check and even teach them to perform tasks alien to their bestiality. In the first hour, you follow this tentative romance that develops between Kung, a soldier stationed in a remote town in northern Thailand, and Tong, a young guy who lives there. They pal around, see a movie, hang out with other locals, and take a romantic cruise around the city on their scooter. In the second half, you follow a different, unnamed soldier as he pursues the spirit of a tiger shaman, first in his human form, then in his tiger form, through a remote jungle. After several days and nights of failing to defeat the spirit, he finally just gives himself over to it, allowing the spirit to absorb him and subsequently entering into the spirit world. Some intertitles and old paintings loosely guide you through this second half, which is inspired by the stories of Noi Inthanon, a prolific Thai writer and journalist who wrote a series of jungle adventure novels called Long Fry in the early 1950s. But don't go into this expecting anything resembling a traditional narrative, because you will only get frustrated. Like the viewers who walked out on the screening of the film at the 2004 Cannes Film Festival, and the ones who stayed till the end just to boo it and to jeer during the Q&A session. Although it won the jury prize that year, from a jury headed by Quentin Tarantino, of all people, initial responses were very mixed. A lot of critics said, well, there's nothing going on here, there's no story, it doesn't make sense, and it turns into something else entirely after an hour. The entertainment magazine Variety called it a, quote, exceedingly strange, incomprehensible pick that will sorely try the patience of most art house viewers, unquote, which is honestly not untrue. But the people who defended it clearly saw some potential there that just needed more time to marinate. And Tropical Malady probably was really weird at first brush, but then looked a lot different once you could go back and see how it fit into a larger body of work exploring similar themes via similar methods. It's kind of like how David Lynch's earlier film, Lost Highway, feels a bit like watching a working prototype of Mulholland Drive. The ideas and the execution are all clearly coming out of the same creative soup. There's some kind of artistic and ideological consistency there, some particular obsession that the director is trying to tease out and put to the screen. The movie's reputation recovered somewhat when Weerasethakul won the Palme d'Or in 2010 for Uncle Boonmee Who Can Recall His Past Lives, because that kind of recognition will have people going back through your catalog and reappraising it with this new perspective that a prize-winning director made this. Plus, it proves that this was always his style and subject matter. Conveniently, this is the exact perspective that I'm coming to this movie from, having watched Uncle Boonmee first and knowing a bit about what to expect. And you can very much tell that it's all coming, in earnest, I might add, from the same guy who is committed to the same preoccupations. The production value in Uncle Boonmee is better, and there's a bit more narrative coherence overall, but much of what goes on there, what it confronts the viewer with, the question it raises that it never answers, the slow and quiet shooting style, All of that is the same in Tropical Malady, and the construction too. Both films contain this seemingly random second narrative that is strange and fantastical and spiritual. One thing I found myself wondering, and that I ended up having to look up more information about, was why this movie would include soldiers as characters to begin with. The film is vague about this, but it's worth noting that Weerasethakul's home, the Isan region in the northeast of Thailand, was where a lot of communist insurgents were based from the 60s through the 80s. During this time, there was a guerrilla war between the Communist Party of Thailand and the Thai government, and the former built the bulk of its support out in these rural areas. So the military presence comes from decades of the state treating Isan as a security problem. This comes up in Uncle Boonmi as well, although it's not the primary reading in either movie. It's just part of what sets the scene. And there's a more interesting layer here when you consider soldiers are typically perceived as the pinnacle of masculinity. So there's something to seeing Kung become so vulnerable with Tong in the first part, and to seeing the unnamed soldier consumed by the very forest he intended to conquer in the second part. These little victories by man and by nature seem to represent Isan's continued resistance against state authority. The more interesting aspect, though, is, of course, the mythological one. Politics, gender, whatever. None of that can trump the were-tiger. There's a suggestion of the supernatural in the first half of the movie, but in the second half, he goes all in. I mean, the guy is literally battling a spirit and talking to a monkey, and at one point he sees this ethereal glowing tree and the ghost of a cow rise up from its dead body, and he reverts to crawling on hands and knees and behaving like a beast and generally just has a really weird time. Evidently, the story about the tiger spirit goes back to a broader Southeast Asian tradition of humans transforming into animals through various magical means. They have a long history of seeing the jungle as a spiritual realm, one inhabited by ghosts, spirits, demons, animals that can talk, and the tiger gets special treatment for reigning supreme in the real world anyway, being an apex predator. So the second half of the film may not necessarily be legible to anyone unfamiliar with this bit of Southeast Asian culture, but you don't really need to solve the mystery any more than you need to solve any other piece of folklore or mythology. You just take it in for what it is and how you react to it. The wild and dark jungle where you seek out who knows what, and where who knows what seeks you out too.
If travel is searching and home what's been found, I'm not stopping. I'm going hunting. I'm a hunter. I'll bring back the goods, but I don't know when. I thought I could organize freedom. How Scandinavian of me, and traveling and jam. You sussed it out, didn't you? You could smell it. So you left me on my own to complete the mission.
Speaking of seeking things out, Out of all the movies I've watched for my program, this was one of the most difficult ones for me to track down in a form that was watchable and came with English subtitles. In fact, I got so frustrated searching for the movie that by the time I actually watched it, I didn't have it in me anymore to be frustrated by how obtuse it was. So I guess that worked out for me. I went into this with a pretty open mind anyway. Knowing a bit already about what to expect from Weerasethakul, I knew it was going to be slow and explain very little. And to be honest, even if I hadn't been able to find the movie with subtitles, there's really not much dialogue in it anyway, so it's not like I would have missed that much. The most important things I needed translated was the quote at the beginning of the film and the inner titles explaining the tiger shaman piece of folklore, and the rest is all just flirting and small talk. At the end of the day, Weerasathakul's way of making a movie very much revolves around the feeling you get from watching it. I could have tried to explain the plot in greater detail, but there's really not much to it, and that's not really the purpose of the movie. It's not so much trying to tell you a story as it is trying to achieve something else, stir something in you. I would even go so far as to say the story is not the point. It's all the things that these characters, their interactions, and the settings invoke in you. In that sense, it is a more intimate experience in a lot of ways because the movie occurs not on the screen, but at the point where it meets the viewer. It takes place at the junction between your emotions and its suggestions. It's a really daring way to make a movie, and it lends itself well to these feelings that are too big to really describe, like love, grief, defeat. A majority of movies attempt it, with varying degrees of success. Weerasathakul's movies just open up the space for you to try and describe it to yourself. Or at least, I think that's what's happening. I chose this film for Pride Month because it was made by a gay man and technically contains a gay relationship and gay subtext, but it's really a lot more zoomed out than that. It is, more than anything, about desire. A desire that you can't name or fully understand. A desire that can return you to your roots, your origins as just a primitive animal after all. The heart as a lonely hunter. That's all I have for you guys today. I'm Hannah Belinsky. Thank you for tuning in to Retro Reels, and I hope you'll join me again next time on another look back on the way things were.